Welcome, everybody. It's your boy, the Versace Stunner, with another episode of VSW. Thank you. WrestleMania week continues. We went over what's going to happen night 1 and night 2. Now, we're back again with the Saberwolf.
Woo!
And Mike Panchu.
Back again. Thank you again for having me.
Just to have an overall talk about Mania question and answers. You know, pick our brands. We're allowing fans to call in. Whatever you want to do it. Let's get down to business and let's start talking some wrestling.
All right. So my first question is, it's about the main event for night 2. Edge versus Bryan versus Roman. So this will be the 11-year anniversary since Edge retired and relinquished the title. He retired April 11th, 2011. He's wrestling on April 11th, 2021. Do you think that date will have an outcome in the winner of that match?
I definitely think you got a point there. But I still think they're going to go with Roman. If you watch the Night 2 podcast, I think they're going to try to set up Roman facing The Rock for next year's Mania and do some kind of rematch or sometime maybe a fatal four-way with John Cena and some next upcoming star that they build for a big Hollywood match. But I still think Edge could win because of that reason, Pancher. Kind of right.
You know, now thinking of it, WWE does do some long-term booking, and they do play with dates, and they do play with numbers. There's a great possibility that Edge gives that title. You know, he really didn't lose that title. He relinquished it. He gave it up. He couldn't, defend it anymore. He couldn't wrestle anymore. He had to retire. He wasn't happy about it. You could see the tears in his eyes. That was genuine. He was upset. The fans were upset. We all felt for him. The fact, that he's back in that and he has this opportunity once again to claim the gold that he lost, I think it will play a role in that.
There's rumors that he wants to bring the big gold belt back, the one that he'd ever lost.
And then that could be a thing too. These titles are kind of getting old, We're seeing other promotions upgrade their titles. The new IGWP title. People may not be a fan. It looks pretty good to me. Maybe it's time they did the IC title. Or maybe it's time, they change the world titles up again. But to go with your original question, yes, I think the date will play into effect.
Awesome. My next question. Let's say Vince did get Taker and Cena to appear on the card this year. Who would Taker face and who would Cena face, realistically?
I think realistically, for Cena, you would have had, because he really wants to put people over, I think he would have faced Drew McIntyre for the title if he had been appearing, because he still was tied with Ric Flair, and he'll break Ric Flair's record if he wins another title. He may want to do it, he may not. It may happen in the Hollywood Mania. It could happen with, he would put Drew McIntyre over, just like Lesnar did. But I think for The Undertaker, it's pretty obvious he would have faced The Fiend, because the match he had with Bray Wyatt at 31 was, believe it or not, the only downside. And that's the Mania that should have gone 5 hours, because you almost had it in the pitch dark, like they made that match up for their entrances alone. But Bray Wyatt was carrying Taker, and he wasn't too great at it at the time, but now he has more experience. That would have been a dream match, The Fiend versus The Undertaker. Would have been amazing.
Maybe they face each other. Oh, wait, they already did that. Somebody for The Undertaker to face, it should be somebody that he should put over. It should be someone that should be kind of like similar to him. There's one person in the back of my head that I keep thinking over and over again, and that's Aleister Black. He has been kind of pushed aside recently. But in the grand scheme of things, You know, he would be a perfect candidate for that. He could be the next Undertaker. You know, he was very dominant in NXT. He had that darkness. You know, it's kind of lost steam when he went to the main roster. But, you know, it could come back with that. And that kind of match could definitely, you know, spark his career. As far as Cena, you know, Cena could fight almost anybody. They could have, you know, if Orton wasn't tied up with The Fiend, you know, that would have been maybe a Mania match. We could have seen Cena versus Orton, you know, give us an old, you know, ruthless aggression style match. You gotta remember though, Cena might be different when he comes back. He did lose to The Fiend. Could be heel. We never really seen a heel Cena, have we?
Not since the ruthless aggression in his early days.
Exactly, but as you remember,
the doctor of thugonomics.
But you remember the last time we saw him, he was singing.
And 35, we were there.
You know, he was doing that. You know, the match then, this was good. Do we see him come back as the thugonomics again, you know, and, you know, maybe one more time? Who knows with John Cena? Like I said, Hollywood and what he does there plays a role in what he does in wrestling, I feel. So, you know, with that being said, he's kind of the Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan had some, you know, as time got later on, you know, out of, you know, WrestleMania 5, 6, 7, you know, Hogan had to kept taking time off because he started doing Hollywood movies and TV shows and all sorts of things. And you kept seeing him, you know, lose the belt, get the belt, lose the belt, get the belt, you know, and go back and forth. Same thing with other superstars. And later on in life, you know, same thing, you know, you have The Rock, all these people, Austin, all of them. They all went to Hollywood. It all plays a part. And, you know, the money might be bigger for Cena right now in Hollywood. Yeah, he's a WWE legend. Yeah, he probably makes great money, but he's in blockbuster movies. So, I mean, his priorities are where they are. He's had his time in wrestling to really make an impact. Now he's just, you know, a celebrity status wrestler.
And which is funny because Cena claimed when he feuded with The Rock that he bashed The Rock for the same thing he's doing, is leaving wrestling to make movies.
You know, it's funny about Cena. Go to his Twitter page. He follows a lot of his fans. He really does. That's great. I love that. But he never talks anything about wrestling. I've never seen one wrestling post, anything related to wrestling, except if he's in a movie about it. But besides that, he doesn't talk about WWE, doesn't talk about WrestleMania, doesn't talk about anything. He doesn't play the gimmick at all. You know, he's totally himself on there. You know, a lot of wrestlers keep their gimmick online. He does not. It's totally different. You would never even know he was a pro wrestler. You'd think he's an inspirational writer. So it's kind of interesting. Did he leave wrestling for Hollywood? Maybe he did, you know. But he also left wrestling with an impact. He held the company. He was the face of the company during a very tough time in the business. When they had nothing, they could have easily went under. You know, I think they bit off more than they could chew back then. They had all sorts of issues going on. You had, you know, Benoit, this and that. And Cena was always there to hold it down, to be that baby face. You know, he sold merch, got sales, sold seats. He was the Hogan of the era, you know. That's who Cena is.
Absolutely, you got that right. And because he was a big Superman babyface that the hardcore fans started to hate him for. But we all beg for Cena back now. It's funny how that works.
Oh, yeah.
Can't see him.
People miss him. And that's with anybody, you know. I think we take a lot of these wrestlers for granted when we see them on TV regularly. You know, we get sick of them, you know. But when we get them back, you know, we're happy to have them back, you know. And I think that will happen with Cena. You know, I think a lot of people enjoyed him being squashed by The Fiend because at the time, let's not forget, The Fiend was the, you know, number one top hottest thing in wrestling. You know, they had him closing out Mania over title matches, over everything. And it was done with near perfection. So, you know, with that being said, though, you know, Cena is the legend now of the last decade at least, right?
Absolutely, he has to be. He's got all these title reigns. He had memorable feuds where he looks strong with the 5 moves of doom, as the internet calls it. The 5-star knuckle shuffle with the "you can't see me" to the STFU had to be censored to STF, and the FU had to be censored to the attitude adjustment. We all memorize Cena's moves on the back of our head. It's unrecognizable. Now that
it's like
gone.
The Rock's, laying this with the people's elbow and the Rock bottom.
Can't
it's,
see
down
him.
there with Stone Cold. It's easy. Imprinted in the mind of wrestling fans.
Ready for your next question, Pants?
Yeah, let's keep this rolling.
Yep. So, it's pretty much been a reoccurring theme that there is a superstar shakeup after every WrestleMania. Do you think Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns will switch brands after WrestleMania?
Well, to answer your question on that, I definitely don't think Roman switches brands, because since SmackDown's on Fox, that's they want the biggest star possible on Fox, and right now it's Roman Reigns, and even if he loses, he's going to be more aggressive, chasing after a title, want to beat people up. And if he retains the title, he's still going to be trying to prove himself and everything, especially where they'll plan the whole next year around Roman, like Vince has always tried to plan around him, whether the fans liked it or not. You saw him in past Manias go over legends like Triple H and Undertaker. And the Raw after Mania, when he beat The Undertaker, we thought it was his retirement. It was the funniest moment I've ever seen in my life, with the fans chanting "fuck you, Roman" to him and everything. And then Roman sucks, like a New Day rocks chant. And they were flipping him off for 20 minutes, and he didn't even say one word. It was so funny. And to answer about Drew McIntyre, I do think there's a good possibility he'll go to SmackDown, because he's done everything he can on Raw. Raw is really stale right now, outside of the Randy Orton, Bray Wyatt stuff. And even the McIntyre-Lashley feud. It's going to be a great match at Manias, but that happened so many times the past few years, even before the pandemic. So I would love to see Roman and Drew have a rematch of Survivor Series, maybe SummerSlam. They could do it for next year's Mania, too, if they can't get The Rock, because Drew will be even bigger than he was then. How about you, Versace?
I'm sorry, I just got really stoned, dude. What was the question again, Mr. Panchu?
It's been a reoccurring theme that there has been a superstar shakeup after every WrestleMania. Do you think after this WrestleMania that Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre will swap brands?
I'm going to answer this in 2 parts. One part is, the first part, I think brands are going to start to diminish a little bit. It's going to become less dominant. With this whole Peacock thing and the network thing, I think you're going to start to see a little bit less branding, But with that being said, depending on where and how Drew walks out of Mania will depend on maybe possibly where he goes. Roman, I don't think, will leave SmackDown for many reasons. Brian, like Sam Wolf said, that, they want the top star there, right?
Absolutely.
So, they're going to keep Roman. But there's another underlining reason why he's on SmackDown, and you got to think back, who is SmackDown's most electrifying wrestler? And that is The Rock. And that is following in the same line. If there's going to be a clash between these two superstars that's not at a Mania, it will be at a SmackDown reunion show. Who are they going to bring in to reunion for SmackDown?
The Rock.
The Rock. And who's going to be on
episode.
there? Who's going to be on there? Roman Reigns. And who's going to have the stare down? There is a reason why Roman is on SmackDown and will continue to be on SmackDown for years and years and years to come.
And the thing is, Fox wants less of the gimmicky type characters, more of like the athlete type characters, and Roman fits that mold.
Exactly. They took The Fiend, yes, while he was hot, but as soon as he started to be unhot, they sent him back to Raw. They want these athletes. They want the Lesnars. They want the athletes, the people that will bring in the sports world, the people that will bring in, more of like the UFC type fan. Raw wants more of the casual fan, the old school wrestling fan, the older fan from the, whatever generations that used to watch. I think they pull old tricks to get us all to get back in.
I do think the Fiend fits better on Raw than SmackDown.
He did. He always did. He should have never went to SmackDown. They should have never even put the title on him. He was unnecessary, the whole thing. It kind of just diminished what he was and what he was trying to do, But about, Drew McIntyre, if he loses, he could go to SmackDown. If he fights Roman and loses, oh well. When it comes to those two, I think people are going to side with Roman. Or maybe Drew turns heel and goes, he could be a nasty heel.
He did his best heel work when he debuted as the Chosen One 10 years ago on SmackDown, harassing Teddy Long and everything.
That's what I'm saying. So, he has that streak in him, too. So, it could happen. You could see that. Definitely. But Roman, no. Roman stays on SmackDown. That's his new yard. That's where he's staying.
He got so stale when he was on Raw all the time.
Yeah, nobody liked it. Nobody could even stomach Raw. What else you got for us?
If Chris Jericho was still signed to WWE, who do you think he would have fought on the WrestleMania match card this year?
That is a real good question because of his inner circle, and he's just a guy liking this cause crazy shit. And when someone messes up with his party, he's like the drunk uncle, his current gimmick, and he's breaking walls down. As after Mania Sunday, people are going to be glued. The main event's going to be epic because Chris Jericho, that'd be like Sting going from WCW doing a WWE radio show back in the Monday Night Wars. You got Chris Jericho under contract in AEW going on the Steve Austin podcast on Peacock right after the end of WrestleMania. That's going to be so amazing. I wonder if they'll mention the name. But anyway, so stick with your question, Panch. I think Jericho would have feuded with Seth Rollins because that would have been a great match with his Messiah gimmick. And Jericho was over as a face too, not just a heel. And the mic work would have been legendary between the two. It would make most sense because Jericho likes to do matches with people he thinks are very high over. And Seth Rollins would fit the mold because Roman would be in the main event scene. But I can't picture Jericho versus McIntyre quite yet, so Rollins makes the most sense to me.
Well, I have to disagree with that. I mean, yes, it's going to be very exciting. I am very happy to see this kind of little, merging of the doing. I don't know, what it's going to turn into. The fans are going to lose their minds.
They already are.
They are, but you know what I mean. You got, so supposedly the enemy on, the other enemy's podcast, on another enemy's network, talking wrestling, and, they're friends. And this is the thing, Jericho never left WWE on bad terms. He could always go back. There's a chance that he leaves AEW and retires with WWE. I mean, that's never been out of the question. If he was to face somebody at WrestleMania, I think he would be facing Nakamura. I think that his, days of his past gimmicks would be gone, the list and all that. I think he would be going totally Painmaker like he does in New Japan. And no other better person to fight would be the King of Strong Style himself, Shinsuke Nakamura. They could put on a really good match probably. And I think that would be a great match. Even him versus AJ Styles would be a good matchup if they had that New Japan flair to it. Because let's face it, Jericho has put on some poundage. He does beef up for his New Japan fights. He does do strong style there. This would be something that, WWE really hasn't seen much of. So it would be nice.
All right, moving on. Going back to Edge. Last I read up, he signed to WWE for a 3 to 4 year contract. Would you guys like to see him wrap it up for good as a face or as a heel?
That's a tough question because Edge can play with, especially with his current tweener gimmick, as long as he's passionate about the mic and you can see it in his facial expression. He could go either way, but I would love to see a heel turn out of him because his singles run, he was known as a heel with the Ruthless Aggression era when he became the rated R superstar, and having a live sex celebration, which would never fly today with Lita on Live Raw. That's funny, ain't it, Versace? You being stoned and all.
No, but I just find it funny, you know, all the
of course.
You better go back and watch it now on Peacock before they get rid of all that. That's all I can say to folks.
Maybe Stevie Richards of Right to Censor is working on it right now.
Oh, they could be. You know, they're gonna lose a lot of the attitude, Ruthless Aggression era. Unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff that today people just do not find appropriate. I find it funny just because it's wrestling. Come on, if you've seen it in a movie, you wouldn't be so offended. Why do we get offended when we see it in wrestling? It's entertainment. They deemed it sports entertainment, not a sport. Just let it fly. Yes, some of the shit was wrong. Put a warning. Put a censor warning. You know, this is, you know, racially insensitive or whatever you want to say about it. But just leave it alone. Let people decide if they want to watch it. They can skip the match if they don't want to watch it. That's fine. But it's part of the history of wrestling. I mean, to get rid of it? No. You know, should they do this in the NFL? Do they get rid of every, you know... They
don't even get rid of Aaron Hernandez stuff when he
That's
plays.
what I'm saying, you know? You got these things and they haven't
O.J.
stopped any of that.
Simpson
O.J.
highlights.
Simpson, anything. They still talk about these people like, come on. It's like, it's enough. Where will it ever end? The censorship and that it just will never end. But whatever. I don't want to go on to a tangent about that, you know. But back to the question was about Edge, wasn't it not?
Edge.
And how
yes.
would I like to see him in the, you know, he signed a 3 to 4 year contract. You know, I would like to see him do a heel turn. Like, you know, the Sable Wolf said, you know, he did do his best work, I think, as the R-rated superstar. Even before that, coming in the Attitude Era with Gangrel and Christian, they, you know, did a tremendous job kind of, you know, just doing their thing. He was that vampire gimmick. He was scary. He was, you know, devastating. But I think when he retires and he's all done, he hangs up those boots, he needs to go out as a face, let the fans chant him and cheer him on his way out, and that will be it. Just the way that he showed up at the Rumble.
All right, moving on to the next question. Do you guys think the WrestleMania name overall will be bigger moving forward, considering the year we've had with the pandemic? This is the first event with fans back, and it's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger, in my opinion. You're going to see more people turning up to wrestling shows and what have you.
Absolutely, Panch. To add on to what I was saying on night 2 is, I think they're like, as we like to, in the VSW like to use the term, shoot the shit. I think Vince is trying to do that with his full-time stars, because he's thinking of, they announced during the NFL wildcard game on NBC the commercials of not only this year's location in Tampa, the next 2 Mania locations in Dallas and LA. If you know Vince, he's going to make those 2 as huge as possible. Well, you would think Dallas wouldn't be bigger than LA, but it's the biggest stadium in football, in the Dallas Cowboys Stadium with over 100K people. He's going to want to sell some tickets to it. So you're going to have not only big matches there, but in LA too.
Big names, not only big matches. You know, you got Stone Cold down there. You got, like I said, the Hollywood people over there. If we see a Rock return, it will be maybe in, you know, Hollywood. We might see Cena in Hollywood.
You could get Ronda Rousey. She lives there.
You could get Ronda, Cena, all those people. Dallas. You got The Undertaker out there, you know, maybe
he's probably going to be in the Hall of Fame.
You make his return, right?
And
you
since
got Austin. You got a bunch of people down there that you might see. Like, Vince is doing this for a reason. He's already sold T-shirts to all 3 events. They're up on the shop. I've seen them. You know, he's already named them, called it. He said did he set dates too?
Yeah, he did.
He set the dates. He set, you know, the places, locations. I don't know if they're all going to be 2 nights. That's the only thing I don't know about the future Manias. That was not revealed yet.
Well, what you could do is, you could do every other year 2 nights, and every other year you could do Saturday as the takeover. And the years where Mania's 2 nights, you do 2-night takeover during the week.
You could split it up easily like that. I mean, I think Mania is going to have to be either big or be done. Like, this is a big one. It is all eyes on this. They're the first major promotion back to have major fans. Yes, AEW had fans, but they didn't have 25,000 fans.
Exactly. And here's the thing. You got the new, for U.S. customers, streaming service on Peacock, which has over 30 million first-month subscribers. And you know, The Office was the most popular rerun show binge in the last 10 years. And you got to Vince is going to try his best to capitalize.
But it's not even that. Like, you got all the new subscribers that subscribe just for the network, right? But what about everybody that has Comcast? Okay, this is a very dominant cable company. Everybody that has Comcast gets a premium subscription free to Peacock. So everybody that has, Comcast cable, whether you're a wrestling fan or not, has access to WrestleMania for nothing, has access to all the, WrestleManias of the past, all the wrestling that, the network shows. They have that for nothing. That's going to drag, old people into it. People in the Attitude Era that gave up on wrestling might say, hey, WrestleMania's on for free. This might be something fun to watch for nostalgia, and they'll tune in and see something.
And you got the girls who are into pop culture, maybe teenagers, seeing Bad Bunny. They're like, oh my God, I want to see him wrestle. And you got the Latino market want to capitalize on
it
too.
Yeah, and don't forget that, you not only, like I said, the network doesn't work in the U.S., but outside the U.S., it's still very live and well, the WWE network. I've seen people showing me screenshots. It's still live and well outside of the U.S., and they continue no use as there's no Peacock outside the U.S. Mm-hmm. So they still have a full working network. It says we don't get access to it here. So you're going to have a really big turnout for this Mania. But yes, Peacock is going to be their primary focus as they're really trying to draw new fans into subscribing that aren't cable members, because, there's the market that people that got rid of all cable services. We got all these, subs that we can do, HBO Max, Disney Plus, all these things. You just have 4 or 5 of those, you don't need anything. But, Mania is going to continue its heritage line. And like I said, either they're going to go big or they're going to bust. And if they bust, then it's going to be a little bit of recoup time. Because this, face it, like I said, 25,000 fans coming back, live shows, 2 nights with great main events.
And you got AEW who's going to be unopposed after Mania on Wednesday night. So Vince is going to have to save some returns. He's done a good job so far not leaking surprises for Mania itself.
I haven't heard anything come out of the camps about Mania. No surprise guest, no surprise this.
Yeah, Lesnar, but that's the fans doing this.
That's the fans. But you know what? The fans are also the same fans are saying that CM Punk is coming to WrestleMania.
They've been saying that for 5 years now?
Maybe even longer.
Yeah.
He's coming everywhere. Every episode of Raw, every episode of SmackDown, every
Especially
major pay-per-view, every
Chicago.
AEW pay-per-view, every Chicago event. Oh, it's going to be CM Punk. We've heard it a million times. They predict him every Royal Rumble. I don't think we'll ever see him enter a ring again. I just think he's done with wrestling, and I think he wants to be left alone by the fans. That's just my opinion, though. But WrestleMania will prevail. Vince is not as stupid as people think. He's not as out of touch as people think either. Yeah, he's a little old school in his thinking, and some of it I think people have an issue with is because of his stereotypicalness and the way that he looks at the world, and he looks at certain people, and he looks at certain situations and what he thinks is going to sell. But he makes money. He makes billions of dollars for the company. He won the wars back in late 90s, taking over ECW, WCW, That's a big, huge feat. Not to mention what he did in the early days, overcoming all the territories.
I think the thing is, since he won not only the Monday Night War, but he got inherited WCW and ECW, I just think he got too comfortable. And once the Chris Benoit murder-suicide happened during the Ruthless Aggression era, he just said, fuck it, I just made all my money as long. I don't care if it declines. If anything, I can just pay Undertaker, Rock, Stone Cold to just appear in one episode of Raw. It doesn't have to be as good again. I think it's his mindset, to be honest with you.
Well, honestly, Rock can be on autopilot and people are still going to watch. The casual fan is still going to watch Raw. The super fans out there that just will catch every episode. I see it on Twitter. They post their results. It's enjoyable to them. Do I enjoy every episode of Raw? No, I can't.
Me neither.
3 hours for me is a little bit long, in my opinion, for a weekly wrestling show. It should be down to 2. So I do go through and I pick the matches that I'm most interested in. Sometimes I just can't watch it. SmackDown, I can stomach it, obviously. It's only 2 hours. It's been the better show. But again, sometimes I just pick and choose. That's the beauty of it now. Back in the day, we didn't have these opportunities. You couldn't go back and watch anything. You'd either tape it and rewatch it later on a, blank VHS. Or the YouTube wasn't there. You weren't finding things. You had to wait for the DVD, or if those were out yet, and not even VHSs to come out. So, we have opportunities now that we don't have to watch complete shows to get an understanding of what's going on. Not to mention, a lot of these shows are getting play-by-play calls all throughout social media apps by, fans and professionals alike. WWE does it themselves. They'll give you play-by-play commentary of everything that is going on during Raw to the point that you don't even need to watch it.
Absolutely with that, Versace, because with the cable and everything, like you guys talked about in an earlier podcast a few weeks ago with the business, there's so much, no one has the attention span like they did in the late 90s, early 2000s, where you can't fit in 3 hours of Raw. You can just catch the highlights on what people are talking about in Twitter, and if it is big, people will go back and watch if they ever get those surprise moments. And you got a lot of wrestling content right now, not just Raw and SmackDown and AEW, but a lot of indie promotions. You got Impact, you got New Japan. It's hard for an average person to keep up that works or goes to
not
school.
even that. You got all those, right? You got the Impact, New Japan. Ring of Honor just put on a great show, I heard. Okay, you got WWE, AEW. Then you got all the great indie wrestling. Limitless, NCW, Chaotic, Beyond. All these putting on weekly shows. Over the course of a week, I think I counted it, I end up watching like 30 hours of wrestling. That's over a day of wrestling just watching. That's a lot of wrestling. And we have that every week at our fingertips.
We're very lucky and we don't realize it. Hopefully when the pandemic starts to calm down a lot, which it kind of is now, even though with the variants and everything, hopefully people will give wrestling a chance once this.
I think they're going to give it a chance. I just think, it's going to take some fans got turned off totally by the pandemic era, I'm going to call it, of wrestling. Me, I'm not opposed to the pandemic era. I think every promotion did the best they could possibly do. You got to remember, WWE is a multi-million-dollar company. They're not going to take risks where millions of people are going to get sick.
Especially when they have the Thunderdome of pipe and noise.
The Thunderdome was fine. I had a great experience at SummerSlam. I even got on TV. All dressed in Hogan gear. It was great. But, overall, it was an enjoyable experience. No, did it feel like I was there? No, not really. But was it something different that got me to want to watch the show and hype? Yes, it was. And it was cool to see the fans all around the ring. It's cool to see it. It made something different, It definitely did. They were innovative about it. It shows definitely that WWE has technology and has the innovation when they want to use it. They definitely can take the edge in the game. And they did, the Thunderdome did. AEW may have been the first ones to put, wrestlers in the ring, around the ringside as fans, but Thunderdome blew that away. They couldn't, after that was it. So, it shows you what money can do.
What you got next for us, Panch?
Moving on. The next question is the Mount Rushmore for WrestleMania.
Rushmore how?
Well, you don't have to do it like the best wrestlers of all time. You got wrestlers that were known more for a weekly program than they were on pay-per-view. But you got guys who are easily could be the greatest ever because they were known for WrestleManias. My top 4 Mount Rushmore of WrestleMania would be Hulk Hogan, The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, and the 4th guy can either be Austin, Rock, or Bret Hart. Any one of those could qualify.
Jesus, you put me on the spot. If I have to think about WrestleManias. Okay, you got to do it in errors and add it in errors. 1 through 10, who are your stars? 1 through 5, who are your stars? 1 through 5, you had Hogan running wild. First one, Mr. T. Second one, he
Piper.
faces. Well, yeah, but he was tagged with Mr. T against Piper and Orndorff. Okay, right? Number 2,
Sharon.
you had him versus King Kong Bundy. 3 versus Andre the Giant. But then 4 was different. 4 had the greatest WrestleMania tournament of all time, and capturing the gold was none other than the Macho Man Randy Savage.
Oh, yeah.
So now, I would put him definitely at the top with Hogan. You got him going all the way WrestleMania 5, losing it again to Hulk Hogan when the Mega Powers decided to split. WrestleMania 6, you're moving it on. Now you got champion versus champion. Ultimate Warrior captures the gold. Hogan will capture it again in 7, but in 8, Ric Flair had come in out of nowhere as the real world champion. He ends up challenging the Macho Man. Hogan ends up getting into a feud with Sid Justice because Ric Flair had won the title at the Rumble, and Sid Justice kind of turned on Hogan, and Hogan pulled him out, and that's how Flair won. Those two would feud. Randy Savage would capture gold once again, only to lose against the Flair. But then after that, you had Bret Hart's era. So again, he would be on the champion. Now he was champion.
Shawn Michaels in that Iron Man match.
Right to WrestleMania 12. Then you had Shawn Michaels. So now already you got 4 major superstars. We haven't even talked Undertaker yet. You have Hogan. You have Macho Man. You have Ultimate Warrior. You got Bret Hart. Now you're going to go into it. You got Shawn Michaels, right?
Yeah.
He's the last of that next generation, but he's also the first of the Attitude Era to be champion. Right after that, then you got 3 more legends walking right into it, or even 4 more. You got Stone Cold, The Rock, Triple H, and Mick Foley.
Absolutely. Well, the thing is, Mick Foley had memorable moments, but he wasn't known for too many WrestleMania moments. He had plenty, don't get me wrong, but it's more for Weekly Raw is what he's known for. But I'm talking in terms of Mania. You got Triple H, always people talking about whether he buried someone or putting someone
Mick Foley's not known for that, but he did have his Mankind moments. He did have his Cactus Jack moments. Even WrestleMania 14, tagging with Tag Team Chainsaw Charlie.
And the dumpster match with the New Age Outlaws.
You definitely had some dude love matches. Mick is maybe not Mr. WrestleMania, but he's definitely one of the greatest. Yes, okay, and then you're moving on a little bit to the Ruthless Aggression now. You got John Cena, Brock Lesnar. How are you competing with these guys?
You had so many dream matches at one WrestleMania. On top of Austin and Rock 3, you had Kurt Angle versus Brock Lesnar doing a freaking moonsault for someone.
And then, regardless of what I think, because I think that, Shawn Michaels' last great match was WrestleMania 14. I think he should have retired after that. He did put on good matches after that.
Him versus The Undertaker, they put on back-to-back 5-star matches towards the end of their careers.
And him versus Flair was unbelievable as well. I will give it that. So,
especially Ric Flair's real retirement when Shawn Michaels was tearing when he was about to do a Sweet Chin Music to Ric Flair.
Yep, I remember. These are classic moments. So you got all these guys, and now you got people like Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins and all these other great characters. It's very hard to make a mountain of the greatest wrestlers. You have 37 years of Mania superstars that's some larger than life. I mean, even Andre the Giant was a tremendous wrestler. You might have not have won the gold at Mania, but he put on 2 decent matches at WrestleMania 3 and 4. And now, I don't know. There's so many. It's very hard to make a mountain.
All right, next question, Panch.
Interested to hear some responses from this one. Let's say Shawn Michaels didn't have that back injury and he didn't retire in 1998. Who would Shawn Michaels have faced at WrestleMania 1999, 2000, and 2001?
That's a really tough one, but even though he never wanted to work with him, I think you would have had an HBK versus The Rock match. Because both Rock's gimmicks, he was either a heel or a face, but he's flip-flopped no matter who he'd face. And him and Shawn Michaels, because of their egos, well, The Rock played non-screen egomaniac. Shawn was known as the backstage egomaniac. That would have made for a great feud, and the mic work would have been amazing. And you got Shawn with DX, and you could have got The Rock with the McMahon corporate ministry or whatever.
I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say what they would have done with Michaels. I think he still would have lost the belt to Austin. He still would have dropped it.
Absolutely.
It was Austin's
that was
time.
happening no matter what.
That was happening no matter what. Would DX still have, kind of broken up? Would Triple H kind of taken the reins? Or would DX kind of regroup? I would have always liked to see what would have happened in the early days of that DX formation when they reformed, what it would have been like with HBK, Triple H, Road Dogg, Jesse James, the New Age Outlaws together with, X-Pac, China, and all of them together. It might have, you would have had half the clique. It might have been pretty interesting to see all together. I think they might have kept DX as a very dominant stable, which they were any which way, but with Shawn Michaels involved, not as Shawn Michaels being, or they might have kept it the same way.
I think you would have had, even though that was the highlight, his first match back was a feud with Triple H. I think he would have faced Triple H in one.
See, I think they still would have done that. I still think, they're real life friends, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
They came up together. I still think they would have faced each other because they have that good chemistry. He knows Triple H isn't going to hurt him in a real match. They're going to have good chemistry. So that's somebody safe. But do I think that if he did, I think they might have still went with that feud. They might have still, blamed Shawn Michaels for losing the title. We might have just seen that Triple H match faster in a couple of months rather than a year or so. We would have seen it happen a lot faster.
I think you would have. He already faced guys like his first WrestleMania back was facing Chris Jericho at 19, and he ended up facing Kurt Angle in WrestleMania 21.
He did, but I mean, you imagine how Michaels would have reacted during, when DX invaded Nitro.
Oh, that would have been...
Shawn Michaels wasn't part of DX then. He was, injured. When the whole Monday Night War was really fuming, fighting hard, Michaels was injured. It was Triple H at the front of the battle. And I think that's how, Triple H grabbed all the success that he has today. He took everything that he had by the reins, he pulled it, and he pulled it as hard as he fucking could, and just took everything.
We got time for one last question. Make it good, Panch.
Make it good.
All right, here goes nothing. Favorite WrestleMania of all time?
Ooh.
You're
gonna fucking
I don't
kill
even
me,
know
dude.
if we got fucking time to think about this question.
I'll go
Never
with
mind.
a quick one. Even though Attitude Era was the favorite era with many, and for Mania you got great ones 1 through 10 before I was born in the early 90s. But Ruthless Aggression Era had great Manias, and you combined with the greatness of Attitude Era from one night. And I'd have to go with WrestleMania 19. First time at a ballpark, which set the stage for NFL stadiums in the future. You had Undertaker facing Big Show and A-Train. You had Chris Jericho versus Shawn Michaels. You had Triple H versus Booker T. But you had Stone Cold versus The Rock 3. And you had that amazing Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar match that really cemented Vince as making the next top star.
I get that. I get that. That era is great. I'm going to have to go with WrestleMania 3. 75+ thousand streaming fans. You're never going to see that quite hype again at a WrestleMania at the Pontiac Silverdome. The place was just not jam-packed with people. You had two larger-than-life wrestlers going at Hulk Hogan taking on Andre the Giant. But the real match of the night was the Macho Man Randy Savage versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat for the IC title, when the IC title actually meant something in the wrestling world.
Don't forget King Kong Bundy bullying the midgets.
You had that. You had all sorts of action at WrestleMania 3. You had the greatest, two of the greatest technical wrestlers going at it against each other for the best submission. The full Nelson. You had, Hernandez there, Hercules going up against Billy Jack Haynes. Great classic matches, great memories. I loved WrestleMania 3. I loved the entrances. I loved, them coming in the small rings. Nothing bigger than WrestleMania 3 in my book. That's what I'm going to have to go with. This is all the time we have for the episode. I'm going to go with, let's do one more episode of Shoot the Shit of WrestleMania. So tune in again very soon for another episode. Versace Stoner out.
Disable. Bye-bye.